Hi, everyone. This is chapter 4. So, we're finally getting into our first state of infancy, which is birth and the newborn baby. So, the first thing we want to think about is childbirth, right? And that has not always been the way it is now. There's many different choices now. But, it used to be you had your baby at home and, before the 1800s. And then after the Industrial Revolution, there were hospitals and doctors. So a lot of people were pushed, especially to go into hospitals. Well, then around the 50s and 60s, we had a movement towards more natural birth and trying to make the process easier for both the mother and the child. So now they have actually specific birthing centers and doulas and all these people who specifically work with pregnant mothers. I have some family members who have given birth at home inside of a blow up bathtub, right? There's many different options now. And it's again what's most comfortable for the family and what's in the best interest of the child. Okay, so again, a lot of people go to classes. I think now you could probably do a lot of that online, getting different relaxation and breathing techniques. So, having a coach to help you through labors is really important, whether it's your spouse, a friend, a family member. And I believe during COVID times, this was not possible. So that was really difficult for a lot of mothers to go through this process without their support system. So there's actually three stages of labor. The first stage is getting the infant or the organism, the fetus, ready to come out, right? So that's the dilation, the effacement of the cervix. That's when we talk about, how many centimeters dilated. Well, by the time we get to the end, about 10 centimeters, that's when stage two happens because then you're ready to push. So the pushing of the baby and the actually deliver of the baby is stage two. Stage three is delivering the placenta. Um, I think a lot of mothers don't even know this until they go through the process that you actually have to also deliver the placenta so that it can be separated from the mother. Now, a C-section or cesarean delivery was once rare, but it's a lot more common now, especially if you've had medical issues or had a C-section in the past. It might be warranted, in a medical emergency. Um, if the baby's not in the right position, if the mother's in distress, if the baby's in distress, they might say, let's do a C-section. And again, that's a somewhat surgery of delivering the baby. Um, the mother is either put down completely or somewhat anesthetized so that she can still be part of the process, but she does not see the baby being removed from her stomach. She just sees, hopefully, the baby afterwards. So the newborn baby, they're born to withstand trauma. The birthing process is traumatic, right? They're coming from this fluid-filled environment. Remember what that's called? Amniotic fluid. And all of a sudden there's light and noise and air and, you know, a very different environment. Their appearance is very different from what they'll look like as adults. They have a really large head compared to their body. And it's not until we reach about adolescence that our head becomes about a quarter of our body proportion. Now, how do they assess a baby's physical condition? Through the APGAR scale. So, what does APGAR stand for? Appearance, pulse, grimace, activity, and respiration. And here is that scale. Okay, so they took those five areas and just kind of told you what it's looking at, right? Appearance. How does the baby look overall? What is the pulse? What is the heart rate? What is APGAR? Appearance, right? So it's looking at all of those things. Their heartbeat. How is it weak? Is it strong? So the baby can get a score from 0 to 2 in five different areas. So again, they're aiming for a score of 10, but that's not always the case. They might fall somewhere in between. So here are some rating scales. Seven and above is typically good condition. They probably don't need resources, but they might need assistance between four and six. And a score of three or below is dire emergency. They need medical attention. Now, you might not know who Virginia Apgar is, but she actually came up with that Apgar scale. So please watch the video on her on Blackboard. She's a diverse female who was able to contribute to, again, to our rating scales at birth. Now, what about your prenatal environment? Well, if you're born low birth weight, you have a greater chance of things like heart disease and stroke. Whereas if you're born with a higher birth weight, you have a greater chance of certain cancers compared to non high birth weight. So, again, they do find these correlations or relationships between how you're born, which you have no control over, and what ends up happening later on in life. Now, we talked earlier chapter about being low birth weight or being premature. Well, prematurity means you're either preterm, which is born 3 weeks or more before the end of a 38-week pregnancy, or you could be low birth weight, which is also considered premature, which is weighing less than 5.5 pounds. Now, what comes with low birth weight? Many times babies or children are frequently ill, have issues with attention or focus, language delay, issues in school, behavioral issues, again, all connected to how they were born. Preterm infants, again, are born before their actual term of pregnancy. They may still not have issues, but if they're small for date infants, like you know that they're supposed to be born at the 38-week mark and they're born and they're very small, like 2 or 3 pounds, those babies have more issues. Because again, why are they developmentally not where they should be in terms of the pregnancy length? Well, in speaking of complications, they've done a lot of studies, and this one study in Kauai did a study on babies and they found that as long as the birth complications weren't too severe, again, they didn't require a lot of medical attention. If they had a supportive home environment, the child actually started to restore their emotional growth and their physical growth. They were able to overcome those complications and were building resilience within the children. Okay, and after talking about resiliency, we end this chapter talking about sudden infant death syndrome, which is SIDS, completely sad, unexpected death of a newborn, typically under 1 year old. Sometimes they show signs of physical issues like having respiratory issues from birth. Sometimes they're low birth weight or premature, but sometimes there's no other reason, and it's the leading cause of infant death. So I'm going to have you learn more about SIDS on Blackboard, and I have videos and articles. I want you to think a little bit deeper about this concept and specifically about baby monitors and if they're able to assist parents who are maybe scared of these issues. So, as always, email me with any questions.